Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Babbling Eyes video with myself and Sloth. International break, but the news doesn't stop. This one around Lucas Paqueta's FA situation, and this has just come out saying that the English FA are calling for a lifetime ban on Lucas Paqueta. Investigators had seized his phone, but after recovering it, Paqueta threw it away. The FA, who wanted the device for further searches, now accuse Paqueta of obstructing the investigation, and that's come from the Mail Sports. So what are your thoughts on that, Slough? And we'll get into what that could potentially mean for West Ham and, Lucas Paqueta's personal involvement at the club. But does it seem a little bit all over the place at the moment? It doesn't really make sense as to what they're saying.
Well, it's for me anyway. I just look at this and I think, what an absolute circus the FA is like.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one thing to have an investigation, to take in evidence and then return it to the very person you're investigating is, at the bare minimum, one of the most incompetent things I've ever heard. Like, it's almost like they're trying to set him up for failure. And look, we all know that the majority of footballers aren't the brightest of bulbs, and that's me saying that. So that's a worry. But it's the idea of giving back evidence to the person who has potentially committed an offence and expecting them to keep a hold of it, whether or not there seems to be conflicting reports about the FA saying you need to keep a hold of this, whether that's the case or not, surely whoever's in it, like guiding him, helping him out, whoever his legal advisor is, should just say, keep this in the safest place possible.
Yeah.
Like, it's bafflingly incompetent from the FA. It's bafflingly incompetent from the people around him. But also, I'm not just going to pretend that Paqueta is completely innocent or
Yeah.
free of criticism here, because he isn't. It's one of the stupidest things I've ever heard. Like, the issue with the phones, we all know that these athletes have to be contactable. They have to have a phone for WADA purposes. So if ever there's any sort of drug offences or they need to do a random drugs test, they have to be contactable. So he has to get a new phone anyway. But surely the FA or whoever's around him would be saying, keep this phone, here's the new one so you can be contacted if there is any issues. But whatever you do, don't.
Yeah. What do you think then this kind of potential snowball effect is going to have on Lucas Paqueta's time at West Ham? Because obviously we had the initial, well, he was charged but hasn't been found guilty yet, and obviously the investigation was going into 2025. This news is now coming out, and we saw last season when this stuff started to occur how much it impacted Lucas Paqueta's performances on the pitch. And people have been quite rightly quite critical of Lucas Paqueta so far in a West Ham shirt. I don't think he's shown the qualities that he has done previously. I don't think he's been consistent enough, and he's shown glimpses of it, but he's been quite frustrating on the pitch. He's obviously going to be very frustrated off the pitch with what's going on. How do we kind of negate this from becoming on the pitch issue? Because obviously when we're going through a transition ourselves, we've got a lot of moving parts at the club this season. This sort of thing, this noise does not help, especially when it's one of your most key players in the squad. So how do we prevent this from becoming an on the pitch issue and keeping it off the field?
I don't really know what you do, to be honest with you, because it's not a case of someone who they don't look. Footballers are grown adults. He doesn't need babying to the full extent that a young player who is accused of something that is wrong, a 17-year-old, an 18-year-old might need. But I just think that this is a case of, you either have to play to basically impress the fan base, because whether or not you are guilty of these things, you are basically playing for your market value. So say he does get found guilty and worst case scenario, he gets banned for life. He goes out on a high, and he's probably going to have numerous lawsuits from West Ham in particular, who will sue him for a breach of contract. But also, there may well be prosecutions from the FA or potential legal ramifications. But I just think that if it's a case of him producing anything other than his best, West Ham shouldn't really be that bothered about it. We don't need a player who is guilty of these things. We're going to have to, if he's found guilty, we're going to have to replace him. And there's a lot of people talking about that's why we brought in Carlos Soler.
Is the biggest concern now the financial ramifications then? Because obviously it could have been such a different world where Paqueta went to Man City for 85 million in a deal that involved Cole Palmer, and we're now sat here potentially in a situation where Paqueta could be banned, as you say, for life, and we don't get that sell-on value. Like what happens with that situation? Because we're looking at someone who could have been an 85 million pound plus asset has now effectively gone back to zero. So it's obviously on the pitch, it's going to be difficult not for it to impact Paqueta, but he has to show, this is where your professionalism as an athlete and a professional athlete would show. He has to clear it out of his mind when he's playing football. He has to. I don't know how easy that's going to be for him, because there's such big stakes on the line for him, and there's potential of even prison here. It's not just a matter of being banned from football. There are big ramifications, as you mentioned, for this. So I don't know. It seems like a very difficult situation for Paqueta to be in personally. But again, we don't know whether he's going to be found guilty or not, or we don't know if he's innocent yet. So it's hard for us to sit here and say, oh, I should do X, Y, Z. But I just think on the pitch, it's going to be very difficult for him not to have this in the back of his mind and just concentrate on his football over the next few months.
I mean, it's one of those things where I have very little sympathy. I have very little sympathy for Lucas Paqueta in this situation if he has done anything that's wrong. If he hasn't, then I hope he sues the FA, and I hope he takes them for everything they've got, because they've made him a scapegoat. But on the chance that he is guilty, it's not a case of West Ham fans will forgive him. This is outrageous and it's unacceptable. He has deliberately misled the club, and he knows full well that you can't gamble on football. It's not a case of, I accidentally slipped, or you hear these stories like Pogba, I accidentally took the wrong medicine that was there in a tablet. Like, give me a break. You're a professional athlete, and you should be well aware of everything that goes into your body, or everything you're doing in terms of, I'm making a bet. I think if he is found guilty, West Ham need to sever ties as quickly as possible, and we need to sue him. That will happen because he's breached his contract. We will try and get whatever we've paid to him back in terms of wages, and we can't prove that Lyon knew about this, and I doubt they did, to be honest. So I doubt there's any precedent for taking Lyon to court over this. I very much doubt that would be a possibility either. But the thing that would concern me with the later ramifications are FFP. And if you're looking at, a player you spent 40 million on, and then you get zero back in, a nominal amount in terms of wages.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the situation would be there with FFP, because it's not really West Ham's fault at the end of the day. It's the players done something in breach of that. So I don't know if there would be a leniency there.
I would expect we'd maybe have to appeal it, or basically sit down with the financial regulator or whoever is in charge of football at that time, and then just say, this happened, we have no control over it, so can we wipe that from the books? But I very much doubt they'd let that happen.
What do you see then coming up next with Lucas Paqueta in a West Ham shirt? Do you see him being able to concentrate on his football and get back to the best of what we've seen him with, or do you think this is probably going to spill into the team and his performances on the pitch?
I think it kind of depends, because I think there's a lot of stories that potentially, if he is found guilty and banned from football, there are certain leagues that would potentially look to sidestep that ban and offer him money anyway, and allow him to play. I don't know if that's anything more than just hearsay, but that's what I've seen. I think that, to be honest with you, if he is found guilty, I don't want to see it. I don't want to talk about him ever again. Really, it's one of those things where he's basically just cheated. Whether or not he's going to hold his hands up high and say, yeah, I did this wrong. He apparently is working with the authorities, and he did hand over his phone, so you have to commend him for that. But if he's found guilty, then to be honest, I'm not interested. I don't really care what happens to him.
It's a difficult position for us to be in at the moment as fans, because he's been charged, but he's not guilty, or not. He's not guilty or not guilty. So it's hard to, like you say, sympathize or empathize with him in this situation. But if it does come to fruition that he was fine, like there was no issues with this, then, as you say, he could sue FA for quite a lot of stuff, quite a lot of damages there. So yeah, I think we have to just be patient as fans and hope that this doesn't spill onto the pitch, because we do have our own, selfish needs in this situation as a football club. We've got one of our best assets potentially facing, a footballing ban, which would have ramifications on the financial side, but also on the pitch. We'd be losing a very key player to the squad. And it's interesting about Carlos Soler and whether he's been brought in, and whether the recruitment over the next kind of January transfer window and even the summer transfer window coming up almost ties directly into the potential issues with Paqueta. But yeah, I don't know. Let us know down below in the comments what you think of the whole Lucas Paqueta situation at the moment. How does he play his football without these issues affecting him on the pitch? And how do we make sure that the team doesn't suffer because of these off-field investigations that are happening around Lucas Paqueta and the betting situation? But yeah, if you enjoyed the breakdown, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and Sloth, till the next one.
Come on, you
Come on, you
eyes.
eyes.